Our final inductee into the National Ballooning Hall of Fame today is Colonel Joe Kittinger. Joe is probably best known for his record-setting parachute jump from a balloon from an altitude of 102,800 feet. In that jump, he exceeded the speed of sound at 714 miles an hour and opened his parachute at 18,000 feet. Joe began his aviation career in 1949 when he was accepted into the U.S. Air Force Aviation School at Goodfellow Air Force Base. After his retirement from the military, he continued his love for flight with record settings in gas balloons, including crossing the Atlantic solo. Joe's aviation work and his record setting brought public notoriety to the sport of ballooning. Introducing to Joe today is his longtime friend, John Creparo. John's from Georgetown, Texas, and he's a seasoned aviator, not only in hot air balloons, but also in gliders, seaplanes, and airplanes. He's an advanced ground instructor and a light sport repairman. John's a captain in the Civil Air Patrol, Colonel Joe Kittinger Phantom Senior Squadron. Joe is also an Olympic torchbearer in the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. A lifetime member of the BFA and the National Balloon Museum, Joe is also very well known now through the ballooning community as the founder of the International Aeronauts League, and he's a custodian of the International Balloon Mail Reflector System. Mr. John Creparo.
Thanks, Ken, for the fine introduction. I appreciate that. Well, I'm honored to be here to introduce my friend, Joseph W. Kittinger, Jr. Joe really doesn't need any introduction or special words from me. His accomplishments have been very well documented. Newsreels, National Geographic, Life magazine, greetings from presidents of the United States. We know what Joe has done. In 2008, Joe was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. During the presentation, I was sitting next to his son, Joe III. And as we walked from the auditorium to dinner, I turned to him and said, Joe, when was it that you realized what your dad had accomplished? And he looked at me and he said, you know, Mark and I really enjoy Saturday morning cartoons. Didn't you? And I said, yeah, of course. He said, I think the one difference between what you may have experienced, John, and what we experienced was, as we sat on the floor watching television early Saturday mornings in our pajamas, we could look around the room, and in one corner, John Glenn would be starting to read the morning newspaper. In another corner, Scott Carpenter might be rolled up on the couch sleeping, or Gus Grissom might be saying, hey guys, could you turn down the volume on Bugs Bunny a little bit? He said, we realized when we were kids how important our dad was. So, you know, it's just a real honor for me to be part of that, to know this man, to know his children, to know his grandchildren. Joe Kittinger is a part of history because he made history. Some make history for a single deed in a single discipline. Joe and the Fates ensured that he chose to do this a different way. He had great accomplishments in many areas and in many ways. As I think most of you know, Joe flies gas balloons. Joe flies airplanes, from anything from a new standard biplane to seaplanes like a J-3 Cub on floats, to just about every modern jet known to the U.S. Air Force. Joe was part of that. Joe is a U.S. command pilot, U.S. Air Force command pilot. He flew the F-84, the F-86, the F-4 Phantom. In 1957, he set a high-altitude record during Project Man High under a gas balloon at 96,760 feet. In 1959, during the Project Excelsior experiments, Joe not only rose to new heights under a gas balloon, but he space dove from them. His flights during Excelsior reached 74,000 feet, 76,000 feet, and most famously 102,800 feet on August 16th, 1960. In just a few days, we'll be celebrating that 50th anniversary. He still holds the record for the highest jump and longest free fall in history. Joe did a couple more things before he was done with his scientific exploration. In 1963, during what was known as Project Skygazer, he flew in his balloon with William Light, an astronomer, to 82,000 feet, where they remained for 18 hours while astronomer White made various observations. It's an amazing part, the ballooning piece, of Joe's career. But he's also a combat pilot, a test pilot. 483 combat missions in Vietnam. On his third voluntary tour in Vietnam, he was the commander of the 555 Tactical Fighter Squadron, otherwise known as the Triple Nickel. He's the first to shoot down a MiG-21 jet. Enemy, of course. In May 1972, Joe was shot down himself in his McDonnell Douglas F-4D and spent the next 11 months in the Hanoi Hilton prisoner of war camp. During that time, beside being the senior officer at the camp, he also imagined what his future would be like. His future included a flight in 1984 to cross the Atlantic in a balloon solo. First man to do it, probably the first man to conceive of it and plan it in his head in a prisoner of war camp. For all of Joe's work, he was the recipient of the Harmon Trophy, the Gordon Bennett Trophy. He's enshrined in the National Aviation Hall of Fame. The Explorers Club gave him their highest honor of honorary membership. He has a Civil Air Patrol squadron named for him in Texas, where I'm from, the TX-352, Colonel Joseph W. Kittinger Senior Squadron. He's won the Legion of Merit. Well, let me go on to some of his awards from the military. Silver Star, by the way, many of these have multiple devices, meaning he's won them more than once. Silver Star, Legion of Merit, the DFC, Bronze Star, a couple of Purple Hearts, Meritorious Service Medal, the Air Medal, and the POW Medal. An amazing man with an amazing career. And as many of you know, he's just finished his second autobiography, Come Up and Get Me. I hope that everyone takes the time to read that book, because it goes beyond the man as a military man. It goes beyond the man as a balloonist. It shines a light on what a man can be, a real model. I'd like to make a reading, if I could, from what was a very long speech by Theodore Roosevelt in 1910 at the Sorbonne in Paris. His topic was citizenship in a republic. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, by sweat, by blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who does strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself on a worthy cause, who at best knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while doing greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Friends, I give you the man in the arena, Colonel Joseph W. Kittinger, Jr.
Joe, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to induct you into the National Ballooning Hall of Fame, Joseph W. Kittinger, Jr. Congratulations. Oh, no. You can say the words now, my friend. I spoke enough today.
Troy and members of the BFA, Tom Shepard and the family of Tony Fairbanks, and all my friends, I thank you for this great honor. To be considered a member of this group, to these great pioneers behind me and that are here today, is a distinct honor for me. All of us in this room are balloonists, are the people that make balloonists fly, the crew chiefs and the case crew. And we all have that love of flying balloons. It's something that gets in our hearts and our being. I'd like to share with you a little bit of my beginning in ballooning. I was a pilot already, of course, and in 1955 I was checked out in gas ballooning in preparation for the man-high program. It was quite a transition for me to go from a supersonic F-100 to a Mach 0 balloon. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I loved flying balloons right off the bat. My next transition was in 1964 when Ed Yost checked me out in hot air balloon. And I must share with you that checkout. I went to Sioux Falls, and I made one flight with Ed Yost in a Raven balloon, Aerostar balloon. And my next flight was that evening, where I went out by myself, unloaded the balloon, tied the basket with a rope to a fence, inflated the balloon by myself, took off by myself, and flew for 12 hours across the frozen tundra of South Dakota. And that was my first solo flight in a hot air balloon after one flight with Ed Yost. And I was happy as hell to get by myself after flying with Ed Yost. I've made 5 high-altitude flights in stratospheric balloons, research for the Air Force. And this year is the 50th anniversary of my jump. And I must share with you that what we developed in that project 50 years ago was a small stabilization parachute that's still being used today. In every ejection seat around the world, they still use that same little drogue chute principle that we developed 50 years before that. But I was there because I had a great team of people. No one could ever do something like the research that I did by themselves. I had a great group of folks that were dedicated to get me up there and back safely. I could not have done it without them. I was just a lucky person that had the opportunity to do it. And I always tried in my career to work with people a lot smarter than I was myself. And that wasn't too hard to find. And there's a friend here today that helped me get across the Atlantic Ocean. He helped design all of my equipment that I use in my hot air and my gas balloon racing. And he's just one hell of an engineer and a great friend. And I like to say publicly to my good friend Dave Simple, thanks, Dave. But yes, you can fly around the world in a balloon. And that started me thinking about and planning about flying around the world in a balloon. But I wanted to do it solo, which all fighter pilots like to do things solo. But when I was finally as a POW, I had a hell of a lot of time in isolation. And I started really getting serious about thinking about planning it, because here I had an awful lot of time, nothing to do. And I planned the design of the balloon, the capsule, the communications, the weather, the whole system, over and over and over again. And when I got out of jail, I called up my friend Ed Yost. And I said, Ed, I want to fly around the world in a balloon. He said, well, I'll see if I can help you. I said, but the first thing I want to do, I want to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, because that'll be a training flight for me, number one. Number two, hopefully it'll get me a sponsor with lots of money to help me fly around the world solo. So Ed said, I'll help you. We never could find a sponsor. In 1976, Ed tried to fly across the Atlantic Ocean solo, and I was on the other side of the ocean trying to help him. He didn't quite make it, but he tried it anyway. And we kept looking for a sponsor for me. And then, of course, my friend Maxie Anderson and Benno Brusso and Larry Newman, they flew across the ocean, the three of them, and I still couldn't find a sponsor. And finally, I found a sponsor, and I got my dream of flying across the Atlantic Ocean, and it worked out a lot of fun. We had three objectives. One was to set the record, and the second was to do it solo, and the third was to have a lot of fun, and we did all three of those. But I never could find a sponsor to fly around the world. I thought I could find them after that flight across the Atlantic, but I never could find a sponsor. And unfortunately, my good friend Steve Fawcett, who didn't have to worry about finding a sponsor, took that last great gem away from all of us balloonists. The last hope there was out there for us to do something was that around the world solo in a balloon, and bless his heart, Steve Fawcett did it. I'll just briefly describe to you, I came here to Indianola, first balloon flight in 1980. And we were here for about 4 or 5 days, and the weather was really not very good. We couldn't fly. And after the fifth day, we got a weather briefing in the morning and said it does not look really good, so we're canceling the flight. So I looked at Maxie Anderson. He looked at me. He said, why don't we fly? Because he had checked with his weatherman and said it was possible. I checked with my weatherman. He said it was possible. So Max and I said, well, hell, let's try it. The two of us. He said, we'll put up $500 apiece. We'll fly for 12 hours, and whoever flies the furthest wins the money. Not a good deal to me. So we inflated our balloons. Now, Maxie had the Columbine balloon. Some of you know this balloon. This is a famous balloon that was bought by a combine of folks. Nicky Kaplan and Fred Krieg and I can't think of all the other folks, but Maxie Anderson. They bought this balloon. It was an Augsburg balloon, Augsburg, Fabrique Augsburg. It was 1,500 meters, and Nicky Kaplan flew it the first time in a Gordon Bennett in 1979, and that was the balloon that Maxie had. He was going to fly this 1,500 cc. So, CF, brother. So anyway, we inflated our balloons. And my weatherman said to go at 10,000 feet because there's a bag front up to the north. He said, you got to get up and fly in front of it. So I briefed Maxie. I said, Maxie, the weather's not very good to the north. And my weather guy said to go at 10,000 feet. I think Maxie thought that I was messing with him. Because when he took off, he stayed low. When I took off, I went to 10,000 feet. Well, Maxie got drawn up into this front, ended up landing at night at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of a thunderstorm in a lake, and implanted that balloon on the biggest tree there was. And it made a lot of people happy because the insurance paid off the balloon. I was flying in a thunderstorm to the north, really bad thunderstorms. My co-pilot had never flown in a gas balloon before, and he says, and he was watching this thunder and lightning, and he said, well, what do you think we should do? I said, I think you should do what I'm doing. What's that? I said, I'm looking to the south away from all the lightning. And that's what I did the rest of the flight. Night landings are no fun. Anyway, I landed in the morning. We had to fly 12 hours, remember? I took off 6 o'clock that afternoon. At exactly 6 o'clock, I landed right in front of a thunderstorm, right on my butt. We had one of the great things about gas balloon flying, you meet some very interesting people. Talk about days coming back. This was really funny. You'll love this. I landed. We walked up to this farmhouse, and there was a guy milking, had 30 cows. He was milking the cows. And we walked into the barn, and the guy kind of looked at us. He kept on milking the cows. And I said, sir, excuse me. I said, we just landed the balloon. He said, yeah, okay, just a minute. And he's milking the cows. I said, sir, is there a telephone around here someplace? He said, well, yeah, I went up to the farmhouse. I said, well, could we use it? He said, not until I got finished milking my cows, we can't. Anyway, I won the $500 from Maxie. That was, his wife was with him. That was their first and last balloon flight, by the way. But ballooning has always been a great part of my life. I still fly balloons. I still love flying. And I'm just honored to get this award today. And I have to thank my lovely wife, Sherry, and my team here in front of me. Thank you, all of you. And God bless all of you. And God bless America.
Well, we're running right on schedule, which is good. Is anybody have any stories from Joe or Tom or Tony that they'd still like to share with the crowd? I know that the first chance that I got to meet Joe Kittinger was in 2003. A friend of mine had introduced me to him and said that he likes going to different balloon clubs and do presentations. So I'd called Joe up. He'd never met me before, knew who I was, and told him that I had some friends of his recommend me to give him a call, and it happened to be Marcia Tracy is the one who called me. Oh, and he had stories about Marcia. And so he said was more than happy to come to Wisconsin to speak at the Wisconsin Balloon Group. And to this day, that's one of the most talked about, I think, balloon group dinners that we've ever had is when Joe came to Wisconsin. I've been in a number of different balloonist homes, and he had, we had posters that Joe had signed for us that he had given out at that event, and it was just a real honor to have someone of Joe's caliber come to Wisconsin and talk to a small group of balloonists, and it just really felt like he was right at home talking to us, and it was a great pleasure to have him come to Wisconsin then, and it's just awesome to be able to have him here today. I know he didn't talk much about his upcoming project that I know everybody knows about, the Red Bull with Felix Baumgartner, but I'm sure you'll be hearing and reading a lot more about that in the near future.
Can I give it a short?
You sure can.
Let me give it a short PR on that one. A guy by the name of Felix Baumgartner, the Red Bull company. I've been working this for 2 years, and they're doing it right. They're doing it the way that I recommended. The way we did it was slow and methodical and not sparing expense. And the Red Bull company has said, okay, we want to do it safely, and that's what we're doing. We're doing exactly the same tests that they did when I did it. Altitude chambers, testing the parachute, testing the pressure suit. And this year, he's going up in a pressurized capsule to about 126,000 feet. We've been saying 120, but actually it's 120. It's a 30 million cubic foot balloon. That's a big critter when you think about it. 30 million cubic foot balloon. And he'll be jumping at about 126,000 feet. The free fall will be 5 minutes. He'll do Mach 1.05. He's going to be going like a bat out of hell. In 50 years since I made my jump, there's been a lot of improvements in pressure suits, a lot of improvements in communications and life support systems, but the danger and the peril and the hostile space has not changed a bit. It's just as dangerous today at 25 miles as it was when I was up there. That hasn't changed one bit. It takes elaborate protection for the man with a pressure suit, extreme cold. There's a problem. He's going to try to do it skydive. He's has 2,500 parachute jumps, a skydiver, and he's going to try to skydive down. It's going to be done this year, probably in the fall, I would guess. It's going to be done from New Mexico, and there's a real good website, redbullstratus.com, and they're going to have live television. You might even be able to watch him do the dive live as he's doing it. He's got 3 cameras on board, and they're going to try to transmit this as you can watch. You can be part of the jump yourself. So it's going to be an exciting thing. And once again, this man's oldest aerial vehicle is being used to conduct science and research in. And all of us are balloonatics, and we're all enjoy seeing that balloon go up and watch Felix come down. And I hope that you'll enjoy the rest of the world and watch it, because it's going to be a fun, exciting event, and I want you all to be a part of it.
I think Joe said it was 1980 was the last time he was here in Indianola. Is that right?
Yes.
1980. Well, it's not going to take that many more years for Joe to come back to Indianola. The Balloon Federation of America is proud to have Joe as our keynote speaker at our national convention next year. It's the 50th anniversary of the Balloon Federation of America, and it's going to be held right here in Des Moines, April 7th through the 10th, and Joe will be the keynote speaker there next April. So we're happy as heck to be able to have Joe there. It's going to be just a great event, so we sure hope everyone can make it to the national convention. Becky, if you want to say a few words to wrap things up here.
Of course.
I know you don't like to say too many words.
If you've noticed our display over there, the last few years, we've asked Bill Novitsky, who is the balloonist for the, it was for the Colorado Balloon Club, but now it's for the ballooning magazine because he had to move to Arkansas. And anyway, for instance, this one that we have a special one, it says it's for Mr. Shepard. It says, "Very well then, I think it's high time we get this party started." And they gave him a big whistle. And this one is, and it's got Fairbanks on here, and it says it's like the La Coquette, but it says Hall of Fame. And he's telling all these little kids, he says, "Yep, that's right. In French, La Coquette means flown by the handsomest, most intelligent, skilled balloon pilot ever." And then, last but not least, we have this one. You can see that he's ready to go. And it says, "Yep, I'm probably got time for a nap before I pull this ripcord." Now, just in case you guys missed I know you got the books, but there's another little item that between John Capero and Mr. Kittinger, we have this lovely keepsake brass coin. I guess this is keepsake. It says Joseph K. Kittinger, and I know I'm saying that wrong, Jr., and it has the best side, his front and his back here. And then on the actual back, it has the Rosie O'Grady flying balloon, and then it says International Aeronauts League, 1960, 1984, and it says something triple nickel. And what does a triple nickel mean?
That's Joe's squadron in Vietnam.
Okay. And has it's a very lovely, it's made out of brass. Bronze, I'm sorry, I got the B word. Bronze, and Mr. Capero had them made, and and then between the two of them, they are donating all the money that you want to spend for these to the museum. Yay! And they will cost you $15, and we have some in the gift shop, so they go very nicely with your blue books. So, and then when we're finished here, we still need to take pictures of the Kittinger group up here, and we've gotten most of everybody else. And then we have lots and lots and lots of food in here, so I hope you will all take advantage of that. And we have, if there's any pilot that's in here that did not sign the pilot, the poster, it's out there, and I need those. And Mr. Kittinger, I would like you to sign that also. I think I had you sign that, okay? I'm ahead of myself. All right, and if there's anyone not in there, so thank you for coming and supporting all these famous, fabulous people, and we'll see you next year. So.